Hello, second grade. We're here for day 2 of Fables and Folktales. Let's review what we learned from yesterday. We remember from yesterday that fables and folktales are stories that have been told for many generations. We also know that there can be many different versions of folktale since they weren't originally written down. They were memorized by the older people in the community and then told to the younger generations. Another important part of fables and folktales is that they have animals acting like humans. Oftentimes the animals will talk, and fables usually are meant to teach us a lesson. So while you're listening to or reading a fable, here's some questions you should keep in mind. What happens in the story? Who was it bad for and who was it good for? Will any characters change their actions the next time around? So when we talked about the tortoise and the hare, we remember that there was the race, and that even though the turtle was slower, it ended up winning versus the rabbit. We know that it was good for the turtle and bad for the rabbit. And then the characters might change their next time around by having the rabbit not take a nap, and instead racing from the beginning to the end. A very important part of fables is something called the central message, which is the lesson that can be learned either by the characters or by you by studying the characters' actions. So fables and folktales teach a lesson. You, the reader, can learn to not make the same mistakes that the characters make by paying attention to what the characters do and what they learn. Today we're going to read a story called The Fox and the Crow. Now we'll know that this is a fable because the animals speak and they actually act in somewhat human ways. As we go through, I want you to think about what happens in the story, so those major story events, who it was good for and who it was bad for, and if the characters in the stories might change their actions the next time around. The Fox and the Crow. A fox saw a crow fly off with a piece of cheese in its beak and settled on a branch of a tree. "That is for me, as I am the fox." And he walked up to the fool of the tree. "Good day, Mistress Crow," he cried. "How well are you looking today? How glossy your feathers are! How bright your eye! I feel sure your voice might surpass that of other birds, just as your figure does. Let me hear but one song from you, that I may greet you as the Queen of Birds." So as I'm reading this story, I'm thinking what's happening in the story, and I know that the fox and the crow come and meet, and that the fox is saying all these really nice things to the crow. The crow lifted her head up and began to caw her best, but at that moment she opened the mouth, and the piece of cheese fell to the ground, only to be snapped up by the master fox. So as I'm listening to this story and reading this story, I'm thinking, who was it good for? In this story, I know the fox wanted what the crow was eating, and the crow obviously didn't want to give it up. So it was good for the fox and bad for the crow. "That will do," said he, the fox. "That is all I wanted." Ooh, so this is interesting. The very end. That will do. That was all I wanted. The fox really just wanted the food that the crow was eating. So that makes me think, what might change the next time around? Well, if I was the crow, I'm thinking I might not listen to the fox. So I'm going to read it one more time and we'll see if we can figure out that central message. Again, thinking what happens in the story, who was it good for and who was it bad for, so which characters were happy because of the actions of the stories and which ones were upset, and will any characters change their actions the next time around? So, for instance, the fox got what he wanted, he probably won't change his actions, but the crow ended up sad at the end of the story, so the crow might change their actions the next time around. The Fox and the Crow. A fox once saw a crow fly off with a piece of cheese in its beak and settle on a branch of a tree. "That's for me, as I am the fox." and he walked up to the foot of the tree. "Good day, Mistress Crow," he cried. "How well you are looking today! How glossy your feathers! How bright your eye! I feel your voice must surpass that of all other birds, just as your figure does. Let me hear but one song from you that I may greet you as the Queen of Birds." The crow lifted her head and began to caw means sing, her best. But at that moment the piece of cheese fell to the ground, only to be snapped up by the master fox. "That will do," said he. "That was all I wanted." So as I read the story, I was thinking to myself, what lesson could we learn? And I know that the fox was saying all these really nice things to the crow. How glossy the feathers they are, how good looking the eye was, and that it had a great singing voice. But the fox didn't really mean any of that. The fox really just wanted that cheese. So our central message, meaning the lesson that we learned, is that sometimes people will say nice things to you, but they do not mean it. They only want to get something from you. So, as you go forward in your life, just think about that maybe somebody's saying some really nice things to you, or they're being really nice to you, but if you have candy, they might just want that candy. Or if they're being really nice to you when you're on the video game, they might not mean it, they just might actually want to play the video game that you're playing, and that's their way of getting what they want. Keep up the good work, second grade, and we'll continue to talk about foxes, fables. We'll continue to talk about fables and folktales in the future. Have a good day.